What's up, everybody? You got Dan from Musky Fool, and today we are talking about the figure eight. To non-musky folk, to beginners, this stuff might seem like superstition, witchcraft. Have we lost our minds? Yes, we have. But not because of the figure eight. Figure eight's real. If you don't do it well, if you don't have your figure eight game dialed, you are leaving fish on the table, So today we're doing a little bit of a guide on how to improve your figure eight, how to turn your figure eights into eats, and some techniques to make you do a little bit better job at your next encounter with a muskie in the eight. A little bit of a disclaimer, since we are talking about muskies, it's not an exact science. Tough to give tips to and do a video and show you guys how to do it because so much is in the moment. So much changes based on the fish's behavior, and hopefully some of these tips set you up to read and react to that and successfully land one. So here we go, a few tips on the figure eight. All right, tip number one, finish every cast. The figure eight is not really separate from the cast itself. We really obsess about that last 10, 15 feet as you bring the fly into the boat and do your eight. Finish every cast. This is the best advice as opposed to always figure eight 10 times. You got to tailor this to the situation. You got to be scanning the area around you if you're in different situations and need to maybe do a shorter figure eight, a longer figure eight. Watch out for obstructions. Maybe you saw something and you need to go deeper, but finish every cast. And what I also mean by that is really maintaining the depth of your fly as it comes back. It's really easy. Our eyes play tricks on us. We want to look and see that fly and bring it up to the surface as it comes and gets closer to the boat. And that's not always ideal when you're trying to convert a muskie. So really focus on maintaining that depth. As I'm stripping a fly in, I might start with my rod tip in the water or eventually submerge my rod tip just to keep that fly running deep as it comes towards the boat. I always bring it right back to me before going out and around. But that's the main tip. Tip number one, finish every cast. All right, tip number two, making the situational adjustments. This is really the best tip of them all because it helps tailor how you change your figure eight to given situations. So first we're going to kind of talk about the low and or clear water situations. Sometimes they're both, sometimes you have low water, sometimes just clear water. But in those situations, we're not bringing it back deep, doing 9/8 every time when there's no fish. We're scanning the area and we don't see any fish activity. We're just not doing that. It's not worth it. It's better off recasting and hitting a different spot. What we are doing is taking into account that we're probably in lower clear water. We don't really want to bring that fish to the boat, so we might be trying to get that trigger moment out away from us. And if we are bringing it into the boat, we're being really conscious of the depth it runs at, so we don't snag it, bump it into any rocks. This is a time where often you actually have a fish following and it's getting shallower near the boat, and as it gets shallower, your fly runs into some weeds and the fish spooks off and didn't like that. So really maintain that depth, keep it high, keep that figure eight out away from the boat. I might just even do like an L turn and bring it here, let it hang. Really scanning around when it's clear and low water. I can see so far. I'm looking out here to see if there's a muskie. And that's going to help really use your time wisely when it comes to figure eights in low and clear water. When you do have fish coming in lower clear water, we talked about not spooking them and trying to really be conscious of where your fly's running and what it's going to hit into. But another thing you can alter is your body. This is a time, in especially clear water on the lakes, if we're bringing fish in, as I see that fish start to come in, I'm really going to want to get low. Tough to do that in low water because I'm probably going to jam my rod into the ground or into the whatever's down there. But in clear water where I have some depth, I want to get my profile down. I'm a super tall dude, so they can see me from a mile away and kind of think about being stealthy. I don't want to make any loud noises or bang that rod against the boat. That's not going to help you convert fish into eats. So low and clear water tips. Next up, we got stained and or deep water. This is the situations where you really can't see anything. you're scanning, you're looking around for flashes and swirls and any little sign you can get, but you can't see much. You maybe can even barely see your fly. In these situations, I think our scanning senses and looking around go even up a notch, because we're not going to necessarily just see it. We might hear a swirl or see the change of water, or our fly just kind of maybe disappears for a second. Those little signs that a fish might be interested or onto our fly. And in those situations, and when we're fishing and blind and we don't see anything, we're doing deep figure eights. We're bringing that fly into the boat, deep down, up in a turn, go around a couple times, 2-3 times for sure, especially if we're in a juicy spot. We haven't seen, anything, but our senses are up and we can't see our fly. So when it's a little bit deeper stained water, I think that puts some more emphasis on doing a more elaborate, elongated figure eight. Really, you got to do a good one. You can't just kind of bring it into the boat, look around, because those are the situations in deep stained water. Fish are going to come out of nowhere. You're going to get a lot of blind eats at the boat where you didn't see anything. And you want to, convert those, not get spooked. So, little tip for low, clear water, deep stained water, make the right situational adjustments. All right, tip number 3, we're talking about what happens when a fish follows. Game on. What are we doing? And really, what's the difference, and how do we tell that fish's behavior? It's the difference between kind of a hot follow or a good follow and a bad follow, maybe something sluggish. So, good follow. It really does depend. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it does depend. But some signs of a good follow where I really feel confident that fish is either going to eat in the 8, it's coming in hot, or we're going to be able to get that fish to eat. It's kind of fired up. And that is, any surges, gill flares. If you're bringing that thing in and you start to speed up a little bit and that fish just keeps on it and keeps on it, those are good signs that keep firing it up, keep revving his engine until you can get him to really eat. I think that's one of the good things that you want to do when you have a hot follow, is not immediately see that fish's sign as aggressive and think it's going to eat right away. Take it as a sign that you got him on a rope a little bit, and you need to kind of play the game and get him revved up so you can get that perfect opportunity to get them in a top corner and really get it to eat. You want to kind of bring them to that crescendo, as opposed to just be like, oh, fish follow, and try and get them to eat right away. Usually doesn't work like that. Usually they kind of, mess off. Other signs, I think when I start to see fish show up late, or flashes, when I don't have a real clear sign of activity, but I know there's a big swirl and that fish kind of came out on it fast, those are usually signs that it was willing to leave where it was hanging out to come after your fly. So be sure to take advantage of those, read those in those situations. I'm trying to appropriately change things in a very subtle, progressive way. So I might start to slowly speed it up, not a huge speed up. I might hang it a little bit, but not a long pause, and see what the fish reacts to. You got to make really quick adjustments here, because if you hang it too long or speed it up too fast, that might throw the fish off. So really subtle, see what it likes. Like I said, we're trying to rev it up, and you're just trying to find the right equation to, get them all tickled and get them to eat. So bad follows, what do we talk about with those? These are just situations where, at the end of the day, they're good because you are locating a fish's zip code, but they're just situations that fish just isn't interested. Really low, slow, you're already stripping pretty slow, and it's just kind of hanging behind it. It's giving it a long time. Maybe it even follows you around a turn or two, but it doesn't give you any of those signs that it's revved up. Gills aren't flaring. You speed it up a little bit and it doesn't tail kick, after it. You can play the game and maybe just try and come back to him at a different window, but you got an address, and don't beat yourself up on some of those situations. There's nothing you can really do. Sometimes those fish, they just want to follow and they don't want to eat. That's why they drive us crazy. All right, next tip, blind eats, setting the hook. This is the knee knocker moment of musky fishing. Whether you got a fish coming in, you got him revved up around the 8 and you get him to eat right at the boat, or especially so when you get one of those blind suicide eats. No sign of the fish coming in. You might even be in turn number 2, still haven't seen a fish, and out of nowhere it comes out. It just absolutely destroys it. Those are the tough ones to convert, but what do you do? So blind eats, I think it's more about knowing that this is a really frequent occurrence. And by frequent, I mean it happens enough in musky fishing where we care about it. Nothing really happens all that frequently in musky fishing, but it's enough of a circumstance where we're going to pay attention to it, and I think it just dials up our focus. Every single figure 8, especially in deep stained water, You just never know. So you're always kind of paying attention, kind of playing that video in your head of what if it eats it now? What if it shows up now? Am I ready? Is my line, am I good to go in case this is going to happen? Oftentimes when I'm finishing a figure eight, I'm going to hang it up there, and it's kind of my last little prayer of just giving them a chance. I've sped it up, I've drug it around a corner, done everything. Sometimes they just will come out of nowhere and eat a dead pause right at the end. So that's a tip for kind of enticing some of those blind eats. When you get the blind eats, you just got to make sure you're ready. Hang on, line's in a good position. Don't overreact right away. I am looking for my first, where's that fly? Where's that fish grabbing it from? And I want to go the opposite way. And I want to go the opposite way with enough pressure that I drive the hooks in. But these are not conventional rods. We're not trying to break the rod. Sometimes if you take that approach with a fly rod and really try and jerk that rod way too hard, it goes snap like a twig. Other tips that are going to help convert some of those eats when you do have them kind of going around and doing the dance is, really making sure you give them a chance to eat it. Especially as we talked about getting them revved up. For some reason, those muskies, they like to, when you take it away and hang it in a pause in one of those corners, preferably away from me so I can set the hook back against the fish. But usually it's those corners that it takes it if it doesn't take it in the straightaway. So couple tips for blind eats and converting more of those interested fish into takers. All right, next tip is about some of the questions you get about when do I come back? I had a fish in the 8, I had a fish on, had a fish follow, I had a swirl. When do I come back, cast? Do I keep figure eighting until I see that fish again? How do you handle that kind of aftermath of a fish encounter? So break it down into 3 situations. One is, you have a follow. There's no commitment, there's no firing up, but you have a follow, it's interested. I'm not gonna just leave it. I'm probably gonna try something else in those situations. Try a different fly, different speed, different size. If that's not working, I am gonna maybe just register that zip code and come back at a better window. Something, just the fish behavior, the mood, it wasn't right. The next is, you get the positive signs. We talked about that revving up. You get a fish who's going around and almost swipes at it and eats, and it's like it's not ready to go, but it's right there. Those are situations where if that fish disappears, I'm gonna keep figure eighting right away. I'm gonna keep that fly in the water at least for several turns, keeping it moving. That fish could likely be under the boat or right nearby, and just need something to happen differently for it to come back. If that doesn't happen right away, I'm making an immediate cast back with the same fly and just seeing if we can keep that fish revved up and in a good mood. Sometimes they come back right away. Sometimes you don't see them again, and you don't see them ever again. But again, at the end of the day, you got another zip code. And then number 3, you get one that comes off. Maybe you get one in the 8, I guess is what we're talking about, or you get one out. You throw that fly back in. I think a lot of common mistakes is that fish is on, I've been fighting it, it comes off, and I'm just like, I give up. It's really easy to do that. I've seen it happen too many times though, where that fly goes back in the water right after that person's devastated and the fish is still revved up. Yes, hooks have been in, it's seen the boat, it's been fighting, and it still comes back to smash it. You took its food away. So don't give up right away, even if you have one come unpinned. That'd be the last tip on kind of what to do after an encounter. All right, last tip. Talk about leader setup. I think it goes overlooked when we're talking about figure eights and how often we're going to be figure eighting, converting fish in the boat. A couple pointers that are going to make the figure eight better and not have any problems. And kind of actually a tip that's going to help you convert a little bit better too. So one, really, this is where I think I like to keep these leaders really simple. I don't want a lot of stuff going through the guides. I don't want a lot of failure points, because if we do get a fish to eat in the 8 and there's only a couple feet, we don't want a whole complicated system where many things can go wrong. Number 2, I specifically tie my leader length to match the figure 8. We're not really worried about spooking them, especially with these sinking lines, so 3 to 4 feet is great, totally plenty, including the wire. But specifically what I'm talking about is these up here. I tie these in various styles. Right here I got a newer line, so I got loop to loop and then a perfection loop. When I'm figure eight and when I'm bringing my fly back, my leader is set up so that I know when this goes through my guides, and it will go through my guides relatively smoothly, it'll go through my guide, I'll feel just a slight tick. I know that I have one more strip until I have exactly the right amount of line out to figure eight with. So I can do it with my eyes closed. Very often you're making a good cast, you're bringing your fly back, hunting it well, and then all of a sudden you accidentally strip the fly all the way into the top guide. Doesn't make for a good figure eight, doesn't give you a good chance at landing that fish. So I designed my leader, and I think about my leader setup to help me convert more. I also don't want a lot of complicated pieces in this, especially up at the butt of the leader, because that can interrupt the figure eight. When I'm bringing it back and stripping, if there's something abrupt that's going to stop me from smoothly bringing that fly back, might put that fish off. So think about your leader setup, think about how you do that, and it should help make your figure eight go a little bit smoother. All right, so we ran through a bunch of tips. We hope they were helpful. Hopefully showed you a few things that is going to up your figure eight game. Really, if you haven't had a lot of interactions in the figure eight, believe me, trust me when I tell you, it's going to convert more fish. Really hone it in, focus on it, give it the time. I'd be lying if it wasn't true. We're sitting here filming a video, and this whole time I've had a fly soaking in the water next to the boat, and I think the musky angler in me knows that any time it could actually get eaten right now. We're on a musky lake. That's how seriously we take the figure eights. So really give it some time, look through the tips, get your leader dialed in so your figure eights are better, and then at the end of the day, know you're really just putting yourself and the fly in another situation that it can possibly get eaten. Don't give up. Fish that fly all the way until you're done with your eight. You're not done with the cast. So keep going all the way to the end. You really don't know what's going to happen. When in doubt, look around the situation. Clear water, low water, maybe de-emphasize it a little bit, but still, we're always paying attention, especially near the boat. Something spooky could happen and it might be the only chance of the day. So, all right, folks, so that's our figure eight video. Hope you liked it. Hope it helps you land a few more fish in the eight. Best of luck this season. We'll see you next time. Good. Cut.